Better Players, Better People podcast. Been waiting to get you on, to be honest here. I'm sure many people watching the podcast will recognise your face, but let's start off for those that don't know who you are. Introduce yourself and what qualifies you to talk about PE and school sport.
So my name is David Tangney. I'm a qualified PE teacher, qualified from Edinburgh Uni in 2010, and then I've been teaching up until 2022. So 12 years as a PE teacher. And in the last 2 years, I was assistant head at one of the schools here in Dubai. And so I think I've got a bit of experience in the PE department. And then one of my other roles in the kind of Dubai schools here was DASA chairman for the primary sports, which is a league here that runs 13 or 14 different sports, 80 schools. It's huge. And so I think that gives me a bit of an insight into not just the PE departments, but also the kind of external stuff that happens within the
And you've got your Cognita top on?
I do, yeah.
So what's the role now you've got?
So I've changed, about a year and a half ago. I came out of teaching, which was a bit of a step, and then went into an operations manager for Cognita, the Enrich Me program, which is a kind of enrichment program exclusive for the Cognita schools, and it's about developing pathways and enriching the students and the opportunities they have, and that's through football, swimming, music, drama, dance, netball.
Right, good stuff, but I want to pick up two things there, and I said I was going to ask this off camera. When we recruit PE staff, and it has been the case as well, why do I seem to come across so many PE teachers from Edinburgh Uni? They all seem to know each other. I know the weather's not the best back home, but what is it about Scotland that breeds leaders and PE teachers?
I don't know if it's leaders and PE teachers, but PE teachers, I mean, first of all, the weather in Scotland is a big factor. Yeah. But I think once you see one person do it, then it's easier to follow. So I think it's a case of, there was a guy in my year, Darren Jarvie, he went off to Kuwait, and all of a sudden, I can do that, and another friend did it, and then I did it myself, and then people just come visit you, they love it, and they go, actually, I can do this myself. So I think it's all about one person taking the step, and then it becomes easier. And then once you realise it's not a big drastic step, then why not? And then, so I think that's probably the main reason, that and the weather in Scotland, for why there's so many people over here.
What was it about Edinburgh Uni then, that particular course, that seems to breed, because I've worked with plenty of them, good friends with some of them, and they are very good teachers. So what is it about the course, the uni, the setup?
It's quite tough to get into. So there's only about 100 places going to Edinburgh Uni every year. So it's about 50 boys, 50 girls. So first of all, it's quite tough to get into. And then once you're in there, you're in this kind of little kind of tiny ecosystem where it's just PE teachers, it's playing sport, it's socialising a lot together. And then Edinburgh Uni, obviously quite a good university, so therefore there's a good education system, and the framework they give you and opportunities they give you is really, really good. So that, I think, helps create quite a lot of good PE teachers that are ambitious, competitive, want to do well, and then obviously, like I said, follow each other, whether that's going abroad, they go, oh, if he can do it, I can do it.
So that's one for the aspiring teachers watching, maybe try and get a space in the Edinburgh Uni course, and it could be a one-way ticket to Dubai.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so look, the second thing I wanted to pick up on following your introduction there was your time at DASA.
Yeah.
So parents watching, kids watching, teachers, SLT, everyone will know DASA. It's synonymous with school sport in the region. Can you just give me a brief recap of what your role was there, and what did you try and introduce and change? Because the position you had, it rotated over, I think it was every 2 or 3 years, elected into it. You were voted by your fellow PE staff in the city. So obviously you're well thought of, and you had the skills and experience. But what did you do during your time with DASA?
So I started off as the coordinator, or the kind of head of cricket. Now, I know nothing about cricket. Yeah, I know. I know nothing about cricket, but I just wanted to be involved in something else. So my time, the head of the department at the time, put me forward. I did it, and I just liked organising things. I was quite happy organising things. I'm happy to kind of reach out to people and kind of and be honest about, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm happy to kind of help you. You can help me, and then we put it together. And it was a small league to begin with, so that was quite an easy step forward. And then within that, it was going through this really transitional phase. It was DAPSA, which was the kind of primary side, and DASA was the secondary side. And I met with a guy called Andy Jones, who's currently chairman of DASA as well. And we met and we just said, I was like, let's bring it together. Let's do something where we're not just competing against different time slots. Let's say have something that starts from under 8s all the way on under 19s. And we had that, and then that's when we brought DASA together. And when we were doing that change, we were trying to make sure that we had a structure, a governance system in there that allowed us to kind of make sure that we were making the right decisions, informed decisions, and one that was elected by the members or the DASA and the heads of PE or the PE teachers, so that we were kind of, I suppose, not just whoever the loudest was got it. So that's what happened, and then I got elected to be the chairman, and I loved it. I got to meet people like yourself. I obviously knew you a little bit before, but work alongside you, get to work along other people and understand that what they're going through, you might have the answers to. What you're going through, they might have the answers to. And it was just nice. I think PE teachers always like working as a team. So I was really lucky. I had really good people around me at the time and really strong heads of sport. And you could just trust them to get on with it and just make sure you're guiding them to make the right decisions, and then also steer them in a direction that we all agreed upon. And that was change. And so one of the biggest changes I liked we did was trying to remove the competitiveness away from the under 8s, under 9s, because we felt it was going too far that way and you were losing that kind of fun aspect. So we started to move that and get rid of and just make rid of the league kind of tables and just make them fun. And then do triangle tournaments and stuff like that and try and get as many teams as possible. And I loved that. And I think that was something I enjoyed doing and felt quite passionate about. And I think people bought into that, and hopefully it's something, I know it's still continuing now, and it's not as, I suppose, the competitive angle, yes, exists, but it's probably hopefully not as important to the people that are competing in DASA. It's just making sure that there's enough kids and there's enough opportunities and experiences for the children.
I think people won't know what goes on behind the scenes, and I think we're not unique in Dubai. Any network of PE teachers, any city, if you go to Singapore, Abu Dhabi, back in England, in Europe, it's one of the subjects in school that requires those teachers to leave the school gates and network because they need to run leagues. So it's really, that's quite unique about PE and sport.
And give up their time. You've got to give up so much time.
How many meetings must you have been to, phone calls, emails? It's not something you were paid to do, but the school sport program would not run without people like yourself.
No, and I think, but you get your energy because there's other people like-minded like you there, all wanting to do well and wanting to improve the opportunities for their kids. You go in there because you want the best for your school, your department. So yes, that's maybe the internal factor, but the external parts of it are that will also help everybody. So if you've got a fair system, if you've got a vision, and we talked a lot about DASA vision and where we were trying to go to. If we've got that, then I felt that was just going to benefit not just my work life, but the work life of my department, also the work life of the people around me, my friends that were in other departments. So yeah, I just like the idea of what you're trying to create in the Dubai sporting kind of arena.
It's not work when you love it, it really is.
Yeah, I get that. And there was, do you know what, I think there was times, and I also think it's really important that you shouldn't always be the one that's advocating for everything. You need to have other people coming in because you need that fresh energy. You need that new voices. You need someone to go and drive and put all the effort in and stuff like that and give people opportunities, because that was the best thing about it for me was the experience I got as a leader or someone, or learning your kind of craft as leading, was really, really benefited from being in that environment. And I don't think if you would be quite selfish if you kept it all to yourself. So I think it's really important that you keep bringing in new people. But if you don't have a framework and you just let them go rogue, then their agendas or their kind of what they want is always going to, unfortunately, try and kind of ruin what you tried to build. And when I say try to, I don't mean me. I just mean DASA as a collective.
So you were chair of DASA, head of department / director of sport, I want to say? No,
there wasn't a director of sport in my school. We were a small primary school. There was 4 PE teachers. So head of PE was enough. I think a director of sport is a as a bigger title that would be more fair across a bigger school, and also probably from the one that spans from primary all the way to secondary.
But what I want to get to is that you were busy with the PE day to day, busy with the head of department position. On top of that, busy networking and running DASA events, and then along came the wider school responsibility in the SLT position.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's just your skill set, your organisation, your people skills that naturally, led to that position in the school?
Yeah, I think I got quite lucky in some ways. So I believe I have skills. I definitely have weaknesses, and I've learned them more and more as but you just have to realise that your skills are strong enough for the position. But I think, I was quite lucky that, one, you can get, as a PE teacher, generally speaking, you can organise people. You understand events.
Most of them,
but you can understand events and how events should run. You know what everyone should be doing for it to be successful. You can inform and communicate, generally speaking, with parents, children, your staff members, and all those things. And because you're doing that day in, day out, day in, day out as a PE teacher, you get quite lucky that hones your skills.
Yeah, but let's be honest, the school you were at, very good school. Outstanding.
Yeah. Outstanding school, yeah.
They're not going to put someone in SLT just because they can organise an event. So my question is, obviously, you've got a philosophy, and we're going to get into that. How did you adopt that philosophy when your responsibility moved from just the PE department to wider school? What is your philosophy in education with working with primary students?
So my philosophy is really strong when I talk about PE. My philosophy is that you have to teach them the fundamentals, and once you can teach them the basics, then hopefully by the time they reach the end of the primary school when they're 11 years old, 12 years old, that they can do any sport you think of, because you've given them what they need, the foundation. That's my philosophy. I think, and that really is what I believe in really strongly about. If you're trying to create something, I don't want, and I don't think a PE department ever should try and create a message, because then you're just doing it for one kid. I think that doesn't make any sense to me. What I do believe in is if you bring everyone forward. So my always kind of vision of what I saw a kid is going into high school, and they go to a new school, never been there before, and their friends go, "Do you want to come play volleyball?" And they say, "Oh, I've never done that before." And they're going, "Well, it's got a bit of everything." You're like, "Oh yeah, I've done that. I think I can do that." Or, do you want to come play paddle tennis? Yeah, I've done a bit of racket sports and I've got it, so I can step in. So you're just not closing any doors. If they didn't have that foundation, if they didn't have any sort of kind of confidence in trying new things and having this broad skill set, then you just close the door. And at 13, they go, "No, I can't do that, so I won't do that." And all of a sudden, they'll never do it. And I know this kind of...
Expand that then. What is that? Because obviously what you're talking to in terms of fundamentals, we've alluded to soft skills, confidence, you've said there. How did you expand that? Did you know how to expand it when you obviously got wider school responsibility?
Yeah, okay. So my strengths and my philosophy was obviously believing what I believed in, and then leading with an example, and that was my strength. So I got appointed just in the middle of COVID, and there's all these restrictions, but I was able to just get stuck in, go there, lead, be the first one there, be the last one out, and try and just be that was my leadership style. Where I struggled with then later on was I was so used to having a team, so used to having people around you, and you're doing it day by day and witnessing everything they did. And I could do all that, but you can't do it all by yourself. And that's where I used to trip myself up with, was that I was so used to doing it, showing what to do, and then everyone coming together and we'd all do it together. And it was brilliant. But then you can't do that when you're leading teachers that can't see what you're doing. You're behind a desk more, you're writing emails, you're trying to build it. So that was the hardest part of my strength, was that, but my strength wasn't as impactful when it came to that thing there.
Did you develop them skills then? Because what you're saying there, right, is I think it's called the Peter principle. It's this idea that people are promoted because they do the job that they're at their level very well, and they continue to be promoted, but the skill set changes. So obviously what you're referring to there, when you went up to SLT, delegation, the ability to let go, probably, you know, is a skill. How did you develop them skills?
So I was really lucky. I had a good mentor in the school, and they were kind of another member of the SLT, but I shared an office with her, and she was great at just kind of building on my strategy and understanding that my tools and my strengths there were fine. Keep them, keep pushing them. Understanding you've got to develop this side of the strategy, and it takes time to embed things, and that helped me kind of build my skill set, I suppose, and being in that kind of leadership role. And I felt that probably the area that I had to work on was, and I was allowed to work on, supported to work on, was the best part. And that was and I thought I was just someone that was good work ethic, knew the school inside out. The kids knew me. I was able to make it, like, I could walk into any classroom because I was a PE teacher and I taught every kid in the school. Every parent knew me. It means I could just be, I had a really good platform. So I think that I did my time. I did all the work. I did all the days and all the hours of coaching in the morning and the extra PE sessions, everything else. I did all that. So I had this platform. And then I think the skills that gave me meant I was able to be successful. But I will be honest, it takes a while to you have this imposter syndrome a little bit when you go in there. You're not the academic geek, and I'm not going to be. I'm not the one who's up to date on all the research and all these things like someone else were. But that's the good thing. You're the different person in the room. You can't have five leaders in the room that have all the same personality. My personality, my ideas, my approach, my understanding of the school was my strength. And that's where I just had to make sure I knew that. But that was the hard part of transitioning. That was a really hard part. Imposter
syndrome.
Yeah.
I've thought about this before. We've all felt it, I think, but I'd rather refer to it, change that terminology instead of imposter syndrome to imposter thoughts. Because we talk about challenge, we talk about stepping out your comfort zone. If you step out your comfort zone, you're going to be into an area where you could class it as imposter syndrome. You're going to have thoughts of lack of confidence potentially. Have I got the skills? Do I know what I'm doing? I'm not saying fake it till you make it, but there's kind of meeting halfway on that one. So I completely agree. Imposter syndrome, I think we just refer to that as imposter thoughts. Any kids are watching, they're going to come a point where they're going to be given a task or a job to do or step into a position that they've not done before. That's where growth happens. Yeah, and you have to be vulnerable. I think, again, I was lucky in the school I was at that there was a really strong development program of leaders, of middle leaders, of everybody. I got coaching when I was there and stuff like that, and someone just to speak to separate from the school and just to talk about that thoughts you were having, going, I'm not sure if I'm able to kind of keep up with this and do that. And I think being vulnerable and saying, I'm not that good, and them going, well, let's help you. But then also they would come to you because they needed the help with standing up and speaking in an assembly, and how do you get everyone's attention, and how can you relay a message? And that was probably one of my strengths was keeping you leaned on your skill set as a PE teacher. I think what we've done there is lift the lid on how a school runs a little bit for parents and kids, because we get coached. I think most schools do it. Any school worth its salt will do it now. If anyone steps into middle leadership or senior leadership, there'll be it might not be formal coaching, it might not be sit down and have a meeting and there's a piece of paper to work through, but they will be coached. And what you said there was really interesting, that you were allowed to develop those skills. I think that's really important. And that's, if we take it from that level right the way down to sports coaching, and let's get to it now with PE, you have to let the kids develop those skills. Oh yeah. So look, you've had a perspective of PE as a kid taking part in PE. You've studied PE, you've delivered PE, you've been in charge of the department that runs the PE, you've then been responsible for the school that has a PE department. So what's the purpose of a PE department in a school? Good question. Right. I really believe this. I think the purpose of a PE department is to physical educator. Let's go back to what a PE teacher is. It's a physical educator. It's not an elite sports coach. It is somebody who's there to educate children in sports.
in their physical well-being and developing them as kind of in every sense, the kind of physical side of things. So going back to what you were saying there, the purpose of a PE department is to develop students, and I mean every single student, to have the opportunities, experiences, so that they can continue sports lifelong. So it becomes a lifelong habit. And I think that's the whole purpose. Giving them the platform. You just can't close doors. And I think that's so important. I think PE departments, teachers, schools can get sidetracked to having a winning team in any sport as being the purpose. I think that's wrong, actually, in some ways. Because I think to get to that winning team, you have to sacrifice things. You have to sacrifice time with other students. You have to sacrifice other students' developments, other parents' developments. You have to give up on looking at the holistic picture of the school and the culture you're creating. So if you don't do that, if you do that, if you go and create this team, winning team, then you are making big sacrifice along, and I don't think it's worth it.
Well, it's not that easy, is it? We know that it's not that easy to implement that strategy. What are the challenges? Parents watching right now, what do they do?
Challenges is how you measure success.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's the challenge. Success is easy to measure as the winning team at this big event.
Yeah.
So that's where they measure success, and I get it because it is a measure. I just don't think it's the right thing you should be measuring. I think success in a PE department should be measured by the number of students that you have participating in curriculum and after school, because I think that they're connected. I don't think they should be two separate things. They are your curriculum, whether that's during the school day or after the school day or even before. You've got to say that's my measures. How many people are participating, how many are developing, and at the end of it, how many have we got through, and they've got given them this broad range, spectrum of sports that they can have got the foundation for. If you do that, but then there's no, then to challenge myself even on that saying, where do you get the buy-in from parents for that? Because I've had to sacrifice the winning team.
Yeah.
But I don't think I feel if you get that part right, the winning team will come.
Let's leave parents for now. Let's talk about PE staff then, because naturally PE teachers tend to be failed sportsmen. So, and we can say that, can't we? Which by that definition means that we are competitive, because we both know when our teams have won, we're happy. When our teams have got beat, we're unhappy. We can probably gauge that a little bit more and monitor that and make sure we don't express that. But there will be a lot of teachers who are coming through teacher training or still teaching in PE for a sustained period of time who don't hold that philosophy, who would disagree with you. What would you do with them types of staff? Have you got any experiences of, because you've been ahead of the department, you've moved down to the department?
Yeah, I don't think I've got experiences of people that within the PE department, because you have enough conversations like we're having now where you try and instill your philosophy and you challenge each other. And I'm not saying everything I'm saying is perfect. There's parts of everything that you need to bring together, but don't
sit on the fence though. You just said before that you know what you believe. Because
their belief in having a winning team and developing that winning team is important.
Yeah.
But I'm saying what you're trying to install, why just do it for that team?
Yeah.
So I still want parts of what they desire and what they believe in to fit into the culture of what you're trying to create in your school. The hardest part is that if you've got someone who's sitting there as the head of the department that doesn't believe in that, is only asking for the goals or asking for the results at the end of the week on how they've done, then you, as a PE member, how do you challenge that? It's very difficult because you're not in that position. So that's where it has to come from the head of PE, and then above that it comes from the principal of the school. What do they want from their PE department? What is the purpose of the PE department? Is it to win the DC7s? Yeah. Is it to win the kind of...
Yeah, do you know, you're completely right there. I think I've had members of staff that have come in, and if we talk of it as a spectrum, and down this end is smiley, happy, red faces, everyone's involved, and the other end is national championships. What we've tried to do, and we've got the resources at our school, is to achieve everything in between.
Yeah.
Because we've got kids who can go and compete at the top level, but you've got the kids who are who are coming in, and what I've probably learned probably quite recently is that staff will work in areas of that spectrum better than another.
Yeah.
There'll be staff that will work with only Key Stage 4, only 16s and 19s very effectively, but if you pop them into a beginner's netball session, the skill set's not there.
Yeah.
And I think that's difficult for parents to watch, because there's going to be times when that member of staff has to work that into the school. So that's a tricky one, because I don't believe you can change someone's philosophy fully.
No, and they'll have strengths, and everyone has strengths and weaknesses. We all do. And you, as a head of P or someone in that position, have to play play the team as the strongest position sometimes. But my argument to the person that says that kind of likes to coach coach is the wrong word, likes to support the elite side of it and push that side of it, that's great, because you have to create this pathway, 100%. But they've got to start somewhere. And if you're thinking, if I can only just develop this small section at the top end, where do they start? You've got to start. If you don't create them here, then you're never going to get stronger there. You're just going to have the same results time and time again. But if you create that pathway and tell people that, right, by developing throwing, catching, jumping, running at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, imagine what the basketball team is going to look like at the end. Imagine what your things is. You have to know that it's a journey, and that's the hardest part, because that has a long-term vision. But you have to get people to buy into it.
I think if staff have been there for a sustained period of time, I want to say the phrase in football academies, it's called a cycle. I think coaches will take teams, or from my experience, they'll take teams from under 8 and they'll take them through, and they'll pass them on to the youth team or whatever, and they'll go with them step by step. PE teaching, it's quite transient in Dubai. You might get a teacher who's there for 2, 3, 4. If you're there for 5+ years, we often say it in our PE team in our office, you'll spot a kid now who's doing GCSE PE, and you remember teaching them in year 6. And it doesn't surprise you that they've got the skill set there, because they've done the right things in primary. Other than the staff that you work with in terms of PE staff, talk to me about head teachers. Have you been lucky and had head teachers that have always agreed and bought into the philosophy? Have you had any challenges with that?
I have. Not my first few. I got hired by a Scottish PE teacher. She was the principal of the school I started in.
Didn't go to Edinburgh Uni, did they?
No, I don't think she did. And then one of the principals I had was an ex-PE teacher.
Yeah.
So super competitive.
Yeah.
Loved supporting it. Would criticise and be critical of what you were doing, but not in a negative way. But you knew where it came from. You wanted to do well.
If you got beat, was it a question?
Not so much you get beat, but are you doing enough to? I don't want the excuse of you're not doing enough or you're not given the best opportunities for that to be the reason why you've lost. Yeah. If you've done enough and you've put all the work in and you just got beat by a better team that day, then it's easy to kind of say, I've done what I think I can do here, or they've not left anything turned. So I've been lucky in that way, but I've also seen it other ones where they just don't know sport, or they've not been involved in sports, and therefore they're not going to have, I suppose, some understanding of what you're doing. They don't think of PE as a subject that has that much value. They see it because they don't get the results. The PE results don't get rated as much. It's all about how they've done English, maths, core subjects, and then the A-level results. All these things that go through, and PE doesn't have that external assessment as much as other subjects do. So therefore, that's why going and winning things is the external things, and that's why people go, that's what we need to do, and you ask for it so I can help do that. But that's the PE teacher just using any tool they can to help benefit what they're trying to create. I think you really have to sit down with your head teacher and ask him, what do you want the purpose to be? And it has to be a 5-year project. It can't be something that's done after 1 or 2 years. It has to be a long-term thing, and you've got to then succession plan, because someone like I might go up into an assistant head role, or someone else leaves the department, or you've got people that transition out of it. You've got to make sure that philosophy has been instilled and everybody below you believes in it and understands it and follows it. Tough though, not an easy thing to do.
It's this idea of 360 leadership. It's not you're not just responsible for the PE staff, the technician, the lifeguards. You've got to involve the parents, but you've got to look above your head. I've always had this opinion that, and I've had it in my time at the school I'm at now. I've had a number of head teachers come in, and sometimes prior to them coming in, sometimes the year before, the academic year before, I'm in front of them, whether it be by Zoom or meeting, and I'm presenting them. This is our philosophy, because I think there's a responsibility there for anyone who's a head of department or director of sport. You have to guide the leadership, because unless they've walked the walk and they've been a PE teacher, and even then, it's who's to say that their philosophy was correct?
No, I call it managing up and managing down.
Managing up and managing down,
yeah. Managing down is the one that you know about and you understand, and it's kind of managing up is the hard part. It's what do you feed them? Do you feed them the good, the bad? Do you feed them just the good? What? But you also have to remember you're trying to get from them. They haven't got kind of resources that can they just give you and give you and give you. They have to give it to the school and what needs it. And it's about, and I've been in the SLT meetings where you're talking about where you're putting your resources next year. And you have to make sure there's somebody in there advocating for the sports department, for the PE department, just as much as they're advocating for the English department, the maths department. You have to make sure that your voice is heard. Otherwise, you're not. You're not going to get to your goal. So that's the managing up part. And that's what you did there is perfect. Yeah. Get in front of them quickly, speak to them, show them what you believe in, get them to challenge you and saying, well, I don't know if I believe in that, and go, but this is why I believe in it. Or say, and ask the question, what do you want me to do? Do you want me just to be the team that wins in one sport? Because if you do, then I'm going to tell you the negative of that is that you're going to please a group of 20 parents, 20 kids are going to get all your resources, and then 80-90% of the children in the school are not going to be impacted on what they should be. I
think they're quick to go to the option of I want my PE team to win, and I'm going to be careful what I say now because we're in Dubai and education's very competitive. The population's growing, it's going to continue to grow probably. And we're all vying for those kids and those families to come to our school because our education approach is the right way. But head teachers will want to win. And I'm guessing this because that parent then might think, oh, well, their teams are winning and they've got the best PE team or that type of thinking. So I think that's where the parents come in. So how do you get parents on board?
Yeah, probably the toughest thing to do because you're trying to change a mindset that potentially has come through a different system. They could have been elite sportsmen themselves or never been sports themselves, and they're trying to push their kid to be something they haven't been.
Just on that, I've been fortunate to meet a number of elite sportsmen who are parents at my school. I've spent time with them, and I'm always keen to get to quickly, informally, what's your aspirations of your son or daughter, and they're always very relaxed. So it's quite interesting that someone who's reached that level, and I'll say his name, it's Christian Benteke, who's played for Liverpool, he's played for Belgium, and when I spoke to him about what his aspirations for his son was, he was very relaxed. He made comments about coaches speaking too much, whereas it was just he was kind of asking for just calm on the sideline, and he's been there. So I think they probably realise the pressure. The pressure's already there. The competitiveness of a football match, a netball match, is already there. It's going to be competitive. Even when I talked before about taking the competitiveness away from the under 8s and the 9s, it was still competitive. They're still going out there. And it's already happened. It naturally happens. Parents. I mean, you see so many clips now of Gary Lineker and Messi just sitting back and relaxing and letting their kids just play. You've got to trust, well, this is the hard part, you've got to trust the coaching first of all. So the parents have to go in there and understand that while their child's at school, the PE teachers and what they're trying to do with the development of the kids is going in the right direction. Because if it's not, if they see the teacher berating the kids or not giving a kid game time and not developing things, then they're also then they've the right to kind of go, well, I'm not sure if this is what I want. But to get parents on side, you've got to
not be scared of them. I think a lot of people put the hand away and try and keep parents to one side.
Yeah.
And this is hard because you have to be confident to do that. But in the team talk at the end of the match,
Bring them over.
bring them over.
Absolutely.
That you're teaching parents and students.
Yeah.
Say to them and say to the parents as well, going, this is what I really liked, this is what I really liked, this is what we could improve on.
Yeah.
And say to the parents, what did you see with that? I thought it was great. I loved your encouragement as well from that. Everyone got there. Did you see how well they did compared to last week? Just straight away, you're trying to create the conversation when they go in the car at home. It's not about, oh, you lost 3-0. It's, we've definitely made improvements, but I know what we can do next. And what am I going to do? I'm going to train harder. Or I'm going to come to the running practice you've got on Wednesday morning because I need to get fitter. That's what you want to install.
Such a good point. I've said this, I do this quite often, touch wood, thankfully. It is something I already do, and I'll come off the field and I'm thinking of the most recent time this has happened, and I think it was a defeat, and it was to the boys, go get your parents. I could see them round the side. I think it was some drivers that joined in the chat as well, but it was to comment on the things they'd done well. So I think that's such a good tip for teachers watching. Coaches, I think, do it. I think if you look at the academies and the soccer clubs out here, those staff tend to have a sales mindset a little bit more than a PE teacher, especially a PE teacher who's come out from the UK. There's very little salesmanship.
But this is where you get to the debate of the PE teacher and the coach, because the coach knows where they're going with that kid in that one sport, so they're trying to keep developing.
Yeah.
Your PE teacher, yes, they're doing that, but it's not always the one sport. It's 5 or 6 different sports. And the kid might just be new to it and stuff like that. So I'm going to be critical here, though. I'm going to be critical, though. I think there'll be some PE staff that will take a school fixture, finish the game, they might have refed it, they'll debrief and they'll send the kids on the way because, and I go back to it, and this is where I think since the pandemic we've had this, not school versus club, but the clubs have just rose up even more. Yeah. Parents paying for sport after school. It's that idea of salesmanship. It's this, and I've spoke to guests recently on the podcast who sell, and it's not a negative. It's this selling their idea. Yeah, and you have to get in front of the You've
parents.
got to sell your PE department.
Yeah,
that I think goes back to that purpose. I'm selling what I believe here, and if you can do that, but I know that's not an easy thing to do. You've got to be confident enough to stand in front of parents and tell them what you want to do. I remember the school used to do it in the school tours. So the parents would come around, look into the school, and I keep a space in the diary every week free. It was on a Tuesday morning, I remember it. And I would go there and I would say the same speech each time to the parents, because I want them, before they started, to get them. If you got them then, and you believed in what you're talking about and what you're trying to build, that fundamental aspect, and it's easier in primary PE, I think, to sell that. And I was selling that so that when they come in, they already knew what my philosophy was before. Even if they don't come, they know what the school's philosophy was.
You know, every head teacher now is going to block out the head of department's time on school tours, and I agree. I think that's
part of the role, and I think as long as someone's strong enough, then you've got to also use your end of year awards. And what are you awarding when you're speaking to parents, making sure they understand it's not just for the person who got most goals scored, talking about the one who's got the most resilience, who's trained in every sport, has opened themselves up to vulnerability and try new things. That's what we should be rewarding and telling the parents, and this is what we're trying to do. So everything has to match what you're saying. Yeah. And it's hard, and what I think will be the hardest thing for a lot of people is not every PE teacher is confident enough to stop a parent from speaking in the sidelines and being inappropriate. Yeah. Because you have to come going, hold on a second, we don't do that here. Yeah. And I think you have to have confidence in what you believe in, and also backing from your principal that you can say that to somebody who's a teacher, who's paying for the school fees, but you need to make sure they believe in that. And if they don't, that's fine, but hopefully that's the one out of 100 that doesn't.
Yeah, the idea that you get in front of them before they join is this. It ties in with the idea that you're going to spend the time. So spend the time before the matter of fact, i.e., don't wait till something's happened and they're in the office and don't do that here. Put the time in before it. And then the other thing I want to just go back to there is your awards. At my school, and this has been a real success, and we we introduced this not knowing how it would go down, and it's this values awards, which are in keeping. So we actually give in our sports awards, we give a kindness award, we give a skills award, which is not just sport and skills, it could be communication, etc. We give an ambition and bravery award, and they are really well received. And I often say at the end of the year when we're doing sports awards, these are the most prestigious. Only 1 or 2 students get them across the key stage. Kindness.
Our biggest one was the sports personality.
Yeah.
That was the biggest one of all of them, was the sports personality.
Was that a popularity contest, or was it?
No, it was the one.
What was the criteria?
The criteria had to be that we didn't give it, there was a loose criteria where they had to do, let's say, 5 different sports. They couldn't just focus on 2.
Yeah.
So the kids knew, even if you got these incredible young summers all of a sudden, and they've not got the time just to do as many sports, but all of a sudden they were coming to the cricket, they were coming to rugby, because it was 6 weeks or 10 weeks of rugby training. They're like, I can do that on things, and it changed, and they made sure they kept coming so that they had the opportunity to get this award. And I think that was things, and that, we bigged it up, because I think you're talking about role models, and if you are trying to create this culture, you've got to make sure that people that are the culture architects or this culture setting students are kind of actively rewarded.
Let's stay on parents for a minute. I just want to I'll share a thought with you, because my understanding of school sport has always been it's the subject that elicits the biggest emotions in parents through the nature of it, and it actually ranks quite highly when parents choose a school. You could probably tie it in with ECA. What is the ECA program? But in terms of location, curriculum, sport and program is up there. It's certainly up there. Now, I've got another perspective now as a parent, and I'll share this with you. I was watching Thomas play in the park the other day, and he runs up to a gang of kids, and he'll just join in. And all I could watch was Thomas, and I couldn't watch the game. I could only just watch him. And that actually, I remember sitting back and saying to my wife that it's really interesting now to have that perspective, because for years, now in 15, 16 years, I've been able to see the game, see all the kids playing. And now I'm just solely watching that one kid. And it made me reflect on every conversation I've had with parents. And I did understand this. There was a compassionate angle there in terms of, you're here, you're rooting for your kid. But wow, it's powerful. So I can only imagine, or I can understand now, when things don't go right, or there's a perception that there's hardship on that kid, parents will come knocking. They will come knocking.
They are the biggest asset. You are taking their biggest asset, and you are creating an environment for them to hopefully thrive. If they're not...
Asset, if you just refer to kids as asset.
But you are... not a parent yet, so probably why I'm saying that. But no, I think it's the kids, it's the most valuable thing to a parent is their child. And I think you have to remember that when you're making decisions. And
conversations with parents after it, because they're tunnel vision. They've only got the blinkers on for their kid. It might take a bit of time for them to cool down and understand, but at that particular moment, it was not long ago, sat on the park and watching that, and it was overwhelming how powerful.
And you have to, I suppose it's really good for PE teachers and any teachers to understand that how powerful that is, because what you are saying, and you're trying to be good to everyone, but they're only thinking about that one person and the opportunity or the experience they're getting, whether it's a positive or negative experience. You've got to think about, right, one of my good colleague friend of mine, Mr. McCann, he would talk about teachable moments. Always talked about teachable moments. And he would say, when you're speaking to parents and a kid, and I think you should think about speaking to kids and parents the same, because it should be in that environment together. So it's a teachable moment when it's a negative impact or a positive. Going, why did I not get selected for that team? So if you can have a teachable, and I mean that's where you're developing a kid. You're not just going, I'm just thinking about the first team here. No, I'm going, I want to have an opportunity here now to give that kid the tools to then come back and tell me things. So, well, have you been to every training this week or been to training this term? No. Have you come to the other opportunities, running training stuff like that? No, I haven't done that. Have you fully committed to everything that's in the PE department and what we're trying to do? Not always. Are your parents supporting? Are you supporting them? Are they getting to come along to different things? Are you making sure they come along to the early mornings? And then that's tough, and it's a big thing to ask for parents. But are you dropping them off in school so they can do the early morning trainings? Because if you're not, then that's the parents, a teachable moment for the parents. Now that's a hard thing, and
it
it's
can't be considered if they're not there, can they? You know.
And you've got to say, right, okay, when you've got all that, then are you putting the work in? Are you training really well? Are you going away and practicing? Are you going away and trying and continuing to develop? Because if you're not, you can't just expect it to be given to you. Because that kid's trained every single day. He's been here every day. His parents are supporting him every single day. Therefore, why should he not get the opportunity ahead of someone who's not there? And that's that teachable moment with the parent and the child going, do this. And that's where you have to be strong with your philosophy going, and I will give you the opportunity, because that's when you have to make sure they all get there. Now, you can only do that. You can only do it as a PE department if you've got the layers to keep going with different teams and giving them opportunity. It doesn't mean they have to be part of the A team or the first team, but you've got to make sure that when they put the work in, you give them what you've told them you give them, which is an opportunity to play or represent the school.
This idea of selecting kids and teams in schools, how do we... I've got my own opinion, and I say it's an opinion. It's an approach that we've had at my school now for a number of years. We do it in certain sports. There's one or two. You can't do it in swim. We just cannot do it in swim, because if a kid is not able to complete the training session, which can be a number of lengths, they can't be in the squad, because it's not fair to them. It's not safe. Other game sports, netball, football, rugby, basketball, it's the alphabet game. It's A, B, C, D, which is hard because you need the resources. But I do believe the best way is to avoid that conversation. I think your words can close doors. I think if you would say to a primary kid, you're not in. And I've ran that system before. That echoes for a number of years. They just... Is it possible to avoid that? You've used an example there, a teachable moment, because you've had that situation. Structurally, is it possible in all schools to get away from that? And I know you've said that there's another sport the following term.
Yeah, if I'm being really honest, I don't think you can avoid it.
Because of logistics?
I think logistics is part of it, but I also think it's the part of the purpose. You're not setting up... While I want mass participation, while I want everything to be doing, and I do want, and I believe in it, I also, and that should always be there, I also believe that it's good to get knocked back. It's good to not get what you want every time. I think it's good to build resilience.
Could you not do that by you're not in the A, you're in the B? Because I know that's been toyed with it for a number of years now. Let's rename them. Some schools do red, blue. Kids know, by the way. Kids know. The red team's the A team, the blue team's the B team. Could you not do that in that respect? That you're not in the B, you're in the C? What I'm getting to is if a kid's willing to turn up for training, the parents willing to support them, they've joined the school, they paid the fees, they want access to a football team.
Oh yeah, no, I think they should. Yeah, I really believe that. Now I know the logistics and the difficulty you're asking of a PE department to then have all these teams, but it doesn't mean that you have, let's say, an A, B, C, and D team, and you rotate it though, and you go and find friendlies, or you have challenge matches. And I think there's definitely solutions to it. You ask, and this is what PE departments need to do, is you get you've got resources. You might have a big PE department, not every school does. You've got to then go, where's the teachers? Bring them in. And you've got to build this and bring them in, get them involved. You support them so it's easy for them. But all of a sudden, you can train 50 kids as opposed before you can only do 20, 25 on your own. And all of a sudden you can get 2 teachers in and you've got 60 kids there.
The reason I brought this up is for the head teachers watching. I beat this drum all the time. We need more staff to run that, because the hunger for sport's there. It's absolutely there. Who doesn't want to go and play football, netball, basketball on the courts? Who doesn't want to play rugby or whatever sport they're into? But the PE team can't do it alone. I think that's
no, nor should they, nor should they. And I think you'll find that primary teachers, secondary teachers, they will have different strategies, different things that's going to really help you develop the kids and understand the kids a little more, going, actually, this strategy is really good when we're trying to teach this with this kid. I think you should probably put that in or install that to what you're trying to do when you're playing on the rugby pitch. And you're starting to develop and communicate, and it's brilliant. And every teacher that's come and bought in, 9 times out of 10 loves it.
Enjoys it. Yeah.
Loves it.
Right, I'm going to have a quick drink, Dave. Where's my water? What have we not spoke about? Because I've got a list in front of me.
I mean, we delved into education leadership pretty quickly, which I didn't answer that well. Could talk about building.
Is there anything we disagree on? Because we agree on an awful lot.
What's the ideal PE department? What does it look like?
Do you want to describe that? Go. Got about 10 minutes.
Okay. The ideal.
I need to move your cost. I think they're not paying.
Sorry.
I do need a sponsor, by the way. So if you're watching this and you'd like to sponsor the Better Players, Better People podcast, reach out to me.
Right. What does the ideal PE department look like? To me, it is a group, a team of PE teachers all doing the same thing in terms of what they believe in and allowing full access to all the sports and understanding that's what they're doing and not diverting down the path of elitism. Because I don't think an ideal, what a PE department looks like, is not creating 1 or 2 superstar teams. I just fundamentally disagree with that being where it should go to. Where I think you can be clever and where PE departments need to, because they should. It's great to have that. I'm not saying if you have it, don't just stop it, but bring in partnerships. You're trying to create kids that want things. So take the local rugby club, take the local tennis academy, whatever it may be, bring them in, ask for their support in your lessons so you can provide more. And then all of a sudden, then push them into the academies after school so that the kid who absolutely loves tennis can continue playing tennis. Doesn't mean he stops playing football, rugby, swimming for you, netball, whatever it may be. But you've got that link, and that's where you've created this kind of path, that journey that a kid can go on. And if you bring in, I think people are quite scared, rightly so, because there's some people who just want there, take the kids. But if you're not creating pathways for the children using partnerships, then I think you're gonna my idea of the ideal PE department will plateau, and people won't want it, they won't respect it because their kids are not continuing.
I think I've said this before on the podcast, but the likelihood of someone reaching the elite level, and I say elite is paid. Let's not beat around the bush. It's a term used to describe kids' sport an awful lot. Elite. They're not elite. Elite, in my opinion, is paid. You're an adult, a young adult, paid to play sport. You train and that's your living. There's no such thing as an elite youth sportsman. But to reach the elite level, it is less than 1%. No matter what sport you choose, I don't know any sport where that percentage number goes north of 1%. I think football could be drastically low. 0.000 whatever it is now.
Ridiculous.
For the most popular sport in the world. But 100% of those kids at 16 or 18 will leave education and go into further education or the work life. So that's always been my mantra. They're the skills that you should try and harness. Give them opportunities in sport. Let them fall in love with the game. But develop the people skills. Better players, better people. What would you say then about what's different with primary and secondary? Your experience is largely primary.
Yeah.
Does anything change in secondary?
I think when you're primary, you're just lucky. They're like sponges. They'll just soak up everything. The power of the teacher. I believe in this. You get the best version of a child when they come in the door. Usually, they're not the same version that sometimes at home with the parents. I think you have this. You get the best version, and then the power of the teacher. You say it, and they'll go and do, which is great. And I think in primary, you've got probably the most influence, and that's why I believe in what I'm trying to say is you've got that most opportunity to give them as many opportunities as possible. So that power is really powerful there. I think that's less than secondary. I think when you come to secondary, they've made up their little minds about what they want to do. There's the peer pressure, there's the popularity, there's what's cool and what's not cool becomes even more powerful, and that takes away from what the teacher can provide as much. Now, that's not saying the teachers don't have power when they're in the secondary stages. I just think there's more of it when you're a primary teacher.
In my experience, though, you will get sometimes a secondary trained teacher who, unfortunately I've seen it, will deliver a lesson probably the same way that a lesson was delivered 20, 30 years ago. And if we talk about innovation, primary PE must have went through the largest change in terms of innovation, because historically your primary PE was led by the class teacher. It was your homeroom class teacher.
And you were lucky if they liked sport or didn't like sport.
It was a game of football or whatever it was. So to now have experts in that field and relying on research data, the pedagogy in terms of how kids develop sporting skills in primary is there. But you will unfortunately get a lot of secondary staff who will deliver a session the same way they had when they went to school. I think that's, for me, I'm probably answering my own question, the difference between primary and secondary can be approaches, because expectations on the kids is they should have the skill set now. What you said before about when they leave you at year 6, they've got the fundamentals on the go, is right to a degree, but there'll be a number of year 7, year 8, year 9 haven't developed the fundamentals yet. And it's about having that flexibility in your approach in secondary to understand that and adapt. And with that comes primary methodology in terms of small-sided games. Make it fun. Forget the score, mix up the activity weekly, and having that primary approach. So I think that's, from my point of view, one of the differences I've seen primary and secondary.
Why do you think that the secondary teachers don't have not taken on board some of the possibilities or innovations that are available to them?
I think you're talking about, it could be a number of things here, I need to be careful not to put my foot in it, but if you've got a member of staff who's trained in the UK, went to work in a school in the UK which tends to have PE staff that have been grandfathered through, they have been in that school for 10, 15, 20 years, there'll have been overlap there working with PE teachers that potentially taught us, and they'll have picked up habits and traits and that's what I perceive to be the issue. And that's why I use primary as an example, because primary largely will be secondary trained staff coming down, and they have to change their ways because it's not the same approach. And then that's forced an upskill. It's forced the agenda, hasn't it? It's forced them to look at the best way to approach.
Yeah, and I think you also get quicker results as well, because the kids are just at that age can just develop, and they learn so quickly, and they can adapt so quickly that, and also you're starting from zero.
Yeah.
When you get a kid coming through the door that's never caught, it's not something, or never can't catch a ball, you know where you're starting. Whereas when they're year 8 or year 9 and they can't catch a ball, you're like, oh, hold on a second, I've not got the time, or I can't go and start this again.
Yeah.
So it's a different point in the journey. But we'll go back to that point before where you've got this secondary person up here that does that kind of upper end of it, has to understand that journey there has to be so important. Starts there. So they work together to build this kind of framework, journey, whatever you want to call it, from the start to finish, and knowing that you're only going to benefit, everybody's only going to benefit by doing it well there and building it all the way through the fundamentals so that you can do anything with them when they're older. But I think there's that culture thing, we talked about it there. The culture of the old school, I remember it, when my first school I worked in, brilliant guys, I mean brilliant, kind of, to like 2 guys that was still game, if you've seen the things, they were brilliant, good fun. And but they called everyone by the second name, pencil things, and we just played football. Every single game's lesson was just football. And they were brilliant. The kids loved it, but there was no development, there was no progress being made. It was just them having fun.
Are you blaming that for the reason why you didn't make it as a footballer?
Yeah, I am a jack of all trades and a master of none. I think that's why I was a PE teacher for sure. My experience in sport, I think, influences my philosophy. Is I was lucky enough to do a lot of different sports. My parents put me into a lot of different sports. I did tennis, gymnastics, shinty, which is like this rough Scottish sport. I played a little bit of rugby. I did football. And I was never great at any of them, but I loved doing all of them. And then now when it comes up to a new sport, do you want to go paddle? Yeah, I'd love to. I played a bit of tennis when I was younger. I can grab that. Do you want to go to this? Yeah, I can do that. Because you can just I know I'll be okay at it.
Probably goes against everything we've just spoke about for an hour, the fact that your PE teacher just played football and you've got a lifelong love of all sports now. So
yeah, I was lucky in my parents with things like that, but the PE teachers I worked with were the old school guys in my first school when I was just a young probationer. And although I learned so much from them in different ways. Discipline. I mean, no kid ever messed about with them. Like, they were just on you perfect, but they just played football.
Right, let's summarise. Not summarise, final question. What are the 3 skills or values you would like kids to develop in your PE programme? If you were back in the school now, you were in charge of a PE programme, what would you like their 3?
I want them to be confident. So what I mean by confident is they try everything. I want them to step forward and not be worried. But you've got to create a safe space for that. So confidence. I want them to be resilient. So that's going back to understanding that you're not going to be the best at it straight away. It's going to take time, and sometimes you're going to get knocked back, sometimes you're going to lose, but it's all about keep going after. And if you can get that into them, that's probably the biggest thing you can teach a child.
So confident, resilient, and
then fun. Enjoy it. Fundamentals. The fun is the first 3 letters of it, and that's probably the first part that you need to understand. Why do you still play sports now? Why does anybody still? Because you enjoy it. It's not because you're a world champion of it. None of us are. We're sitting around. There's not a lot of them, but we just enjoy it. Why do you play golf every weekend? Because I enjoy with my friends. I like getting better. I like challenging myself. I like taking money off my mates.
Brilliant. Dave, thank you very much. Good luck with Cognita and what's next for you.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.